What's up, Bears fans? Harrison Graham here with another episode of Chicago Bears Now. We got some conflicting rumors circulating the internet, different reporters saying different things. When it comes to Ben Johnson, is he leaning one way? Is he leaning another? We're going to dive into all of that as we have discussions, talking points from three prominent reporters. Plus, toward the end, I'm going to give my quick 2 cents on this Trace Armstrong thing. I'm sure you've seen ESPN's Kalen Kaler kind of drop the report about, how agents in the NFL, there's not enough of them that have coaches as clients, and Armstrong in particular has kind of infiltrated the Bears. So we'll talk about all of that coming up here on the channel. But appreciate everybody for tuning in on a daily basis. We will continue to pump out content here for you guys. We have daily news, rumors throughout the coaching search, free agency, draft coverage coming up as well. Plus, we will be live for a Lions-Commanders watch party tomorrow night. Should be a lot of fun. See who wins that one. It's a big game, obviously, in pursuit of the Bears coaching search, as Ben Johnson is center stage there. So we will have that one covered, so join us tomorrow night for that. Okay, let's talk Ben Johnson here as the Lions offensive coordinator continues to be front and center. Last 24, 48, 72 hours, there's been a lot of buzz. Could the Raiders be the front runners? Tom Brady making a strong push. The idea that they don't have a GM, the reason that Ben Johnson is going to go to the Las Vegas Raiders. There's been certainly a lot of steam there. Our Raiders Report host, Mitchell Renz, has talked about it a lot on his channel here at Chat Sports. And Adam Schefter today, for the second time this week, by the way, he did this earlier in the week, he did it again, kind of threw some water on that fire a little bit, kind of calmed the waters there in terms of that being the heavy direction of where Ben Johnson's going to go. Here's what he had to say today via the Pat McAfee show when it comes to Ben Johnson. He said, quote, "I know everybody has Ben Johnson anointed to the Raiders, but I'm not in that camp. I don't know where he's going to go, but he's going to have 3 realistic options." Talking about the Raiders, Bears, and Jags. Why is everybody ignoring Chicago when it comes to Big Ben Johnson? Well, we certainly haven't ignored it. I do think the Bears are in the mix. I do think he's at or near the top of their list. His colleague, Jeremy Fowler, doubled down on that, said that, look, is there mutual interest between the Raiders and Ben Johnson? Yes, but the phrase he keeps using when it comes to Johnson is open mind, keeping an open mind when it comes to all these jobs. And look, I'll say this for the Raiders. I didn't even think he would take an interview with Vegas, and he did. And I do think Tom Brady's presence is playing a role in their pursuit of Ben Johnson, and I think he's a big reason why they have a chance to get him. But I do think this idea that the Raiders have some big lead in this pursuit of Ben Johnson, I think is vastly over-exaggerated. He and his reps came out and said after he did his initial interviews, hey, first interviews were good. We are full steam ahead on this Super Bowl pursuit with Detroit. They are playing Washington Saturday night. I don't think he's leaning one way or the other right now. I don't think he's in any direction at this point. I think he's interested in all 3 jobs. I'm sure in his mind he kind of has, after one interview of each, Jacksonville, Chicago, and Las Vegas, of what his early order is. But I don't think we're at any stage where you could say it's 70% Raiders, 30% Bears, or it's 60% Bears, 30% Raiders, 10% Jags. I just don't think that's where this thing sits at this point in time when it comes to Ben Johnson. So we got to continue to be patient. We got to see what happens Saturday night, because that plays a big role in the potential timeline of all this. We've talked about it. If the Lions win on Saturday night, the earliest Ben Johnson can next talk to teams is Monday, January 27th, which would be a week from this coming Monday. So as of today, 10 days from now, that's a long way away when you're talking about this coaching carousel. So we'll see how this thing plays out. I don't think we are close to a resolution here. I will say this. If the Commanders pull off the upset on Saturday night, I do think things will ramp up in the next 72 hours following that. Sunday will be more of a, get back to Detroit, exit interview stuff for him. But starting that Monday, things will certainly ramp up, and I could see a scenario by the end of next week he chooses a team to be the next head coach of. Maybe that team is the Chicago Bears. But if they win and they're a heavy favorite, this thing is going to drag on for quite a while. All right, today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. We appreciate Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. If you want to get in on all of the big game action, you got big games coming up this weekend. You got basketball as well as this is the time to play daily fantasy sports with Prize Picks. The way it works is simple. You pick more or less on 2 or more player lineups, up to 6 players, for different stats available. Passing yards, receiving yards, rushing yards, points, rebounds, assists, goals in soccer and hockey. All kinds of stats. You combo those together with 2 or more players in your lineup. You can have different players from different sports in your lineups. As long as it's 2 or more players on 2 or more different teams, you qualify for a lineup. And if you hit on your picks, you make some money. You can win up to 1,000 times your entry right now with Prize Picks. And we got a deal for you when you sign up and play for just $5. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. And when you play initially for just $5, set a $5 lineup, two or more players. Doesn't matter if you win or lose that lineup, you are going to get an additional $50 for free. So check out Prize Picks today. Best daily fantasy sports app in North America is Prize Picks. Get started right now. Okay, another report from Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. Is it the Raiders or bust? He believes that Ben Johnson will either go to Las Vegas or that he will stay for another year with the Detroit Lions. Here's what Florio had to say on this. Quote, alignment has been the word most associated with Ben Johnson. You look at some of these jobs where there's a GM that maybe isn't going to be as aligned. Then you look at the Raiders where 2 days after they fired their head coach, they cleared out the GM. The alignment is more likely going to be in Vegas if he chooses that job. And all indications around the league are that the Raiders really want him. I definitely think that part is true. Let's see here. The question is, does he want to leave the Lions for a Raiders team that specifically needs a lot of help to become a contender? And that's kind of my thing. Does he want to go to Las Vegas? And that's what I've said all along. I understand Tom Brady's there. I understand they can sell him on the idea of picking his own GM. What else can they sell him on? Not really much. Division, tough as hell with good quarterbacks and good head coaches. Path to a quarterback, there isn't really a clear one. Good roster in place, not really. Got a few studs, Max Crosby, Brock Bowers, a couple other good but not great players, then a bunch of question marks. Offensive line that's going in the wrong direction. I don't think that's a great situation at all unless they just give him unprecedented money, which, look, money talks. We know that. But at the end of the day, I just don't think Vegas is that viable. Now, Florio says going back to Detroit, I guess he could. I would be surprised. All the reporting and just chatter around him this time around, Schefter has said this, and again, conflicting reports here, are that does not seem likely that he would go back to Detroit at this point in time. But you never know. You never know what's going to happen there. So I would be surprised by that. But at this point in time, I do think he'll take a job. It's just a matter of which one. And then lastly, Jordan Schultz, Fox Sports, on Ben Johnson. He had the report yesterday that he believes it's a 2-horse race between the Bears, or between McCarthy and Johnson for the Bears. We talked about that this morning. And Schultz added today that he thinks there is mutual interest between Johnson and the Raiders, and I've acknowledged that at this point. I do think that's real. But like Adam Schefter said, to call them the frontrunners for Johnson is way too premature. He said that both the Bears and the Jags are still very much in play. I think when you add up all the reporting and just look at it from different angles, different guys who are tapped in, I think, number one, there's just a lot of evidence that suggests that Johnson has not made any decision. I don't think he's leaning in one direction or another. I do think Jacksonville is in third place right now. With Trent Baalke there, I think that's a tough sell at the end of the day. But I do think it's Bears, Raiders, whoever you want to give the pole position to, and then Jackson as a distant third. But I believe him when he says he's focused on this playoff run. He wants to finish this with Detroit. So we'll see how it goes on Saturday night. I still think if you're a Bears fan and you want Ben Johnson, you should want Washington to win this week. That way it ramps up his decision-making, his process. And if you get him, awesome. If not, you can shift to the Mike McCarthy's, the Todd Munkins of the world as things progress. But, again, if Detroit wins, it's going to be a long wait. It's going to be a long wait. If you had to predict where will Ben Johnson coach in 2025, let us know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Where will Ben Johnson be coaching next season? Okay, let's talk about this Trace Armstrong thing. If you haven't seen it, Kalen Kaler, ESPN.com, did a really good in-depth piece, kind of largely talking about how about 6 agents control the coaching world. There's 6 agents that have more than one coach they represent, a head coach, and they represent a bunch of assistant coaches, obviously, and some front office. Trace Armstrong, in particular, he represented the last 2 Bears head coaches, Matt Nagy, Matt Eberflus, Ryan Poles, several assistant coaches like Shane Waldron, Mark Helfrich, etc., all of whom have been fired. And there's a lot of detail in here. There was one quote from an exec that basically said, I've never seen one agent represent so many people that went to the same place, and it was just a disaster. That's not a direct quote. That's just paraphrasing. And, we've kind of joked about it before with Armstrong, but I think this was really detailed. Look, I know the headline of that last graphic said, get Armstrong out. With how few agents, and I think this is the bigger issue that emerged from this article, we need more agents that represent coaches in the NFL. But with how few of them represent these different coaches and front office execs, they're going to have a Trace Armstrong client at some point. I mean, Ryan Poles is one, so if he's here, he's going to be one. But ideally, can we branch off? Can we not have Trace Armstrong run the Bears? I mean, you read some of the quotes, it's like, this guy's running the Bears. He's making the decisions on who you guys hire. It's ridiculous. Run a tighter ship. And you would hope with Kevin Warren's presence and influence, that would be the case. I know there's conflicting thoughts on Warren. I'm skeptical myself, but you would at least hope that he's not just be like, oh yeah, let's just get one of Trace's guys in here. Like, there's a quote in there that says Trace, when he gets a coach hired, basically just leaves that team a list of assistant coaches he's had. Pick some of these guys. Like, that should not be how you operate. And look, relationships, I think we all understand that, but this has been a disaster. And sometimes you just have to try a different direction just for the sake of trying a different direction. So we'll see what happens, but it was pretty alarming how impactful Trace Armstrong has been in his infiltration of the Chicago Bears. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Bears Now by Chat Sports. My name is Harrison Graham. We will be back tomorrow with more Bears content, including tomorrow night for a Lions Commanders watch party. So subscribe and join us for that. And as always, bear down.